All right, and welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, Episode 3. This will be a bit of a quick hitter, unfortunately, just on the account of there's not that many photos of this vehicle, but I wanted to talk about it anyways. Here we have a beautiful 1995 Ford Aerostar listed for only $1,000, a paltry price, and this is in Girardville, Pennsylvania, or Girardville, perhaps. Excuse me. Only 126,000 miles on it, which is, fairly low, especially for an Aerostar, as we know. Now, the Aerostar was going to be stopped being made in 1995 for the 95 model year, but as the legend goes, dealerships and the factories themselves, the company itself, was bombarded. That was the word that Wikipedia used to use. It was, I think it's since been removed, bombarded with letters begging and pleading for the Aerostar not to be stopped. So 95 is kind of a funny year because it was, the year that the production should have ended, quote unquote. And so, in truth, it went till 97, and they continued making the Aerostar alongside the Windstar for 2 more years until sort of the government safety regulations sort of forced Ford's hand. And if that hadn't happened, who knows how long the Aerostar would have soldiered on. So, quick little story there. This is a absolutely gorgeous white Aerostar. White is one of the best colors for Aerostars. There is no bad color for an Aerostar, let's be honest, but Jay Leno always says if you want to see what the design looks like in its purest form, if you want to test to see whether it's actually a good design, then you color it white, because it just allows you on a practical level to see body lines more and stuff like that, and you can't sort of hide the car's shape under a wild color or something like that. And of course, not surprisingly, the Aerostar looks great in white. A lot of Aerostars are white just because of a lot of them are service vans, and service vans and stuff like that are customarily white. This one is really great because it has this great like black piping, but it almost looks like it's these little lines. I was going to do something like this on my Buick. I love this sort of gradient lines where the lines get progressively smaller or larger depending on how you're looking at it. I imagine this is not a factory thing, because the fact that it goes over the wheel wells like this seems kind of strange to me. I've never seen a treatment quite like that, but it is definitely very beautiful, very striking. I love a black and white contrast, ebony and ivory. You have one white wall tire and one that's non-white wall. So it just gives it yet another sort of like strange duality, dichotomy in the looks department, and more black and white contrast, which I absolutely love. Now, these hubcaps were very popular. You see them on a lot of Aerostars, and they have that sort of circular motion, the sort of throwing star or the slicer wheel like the Corvettes had. I think it's a really great looking hubcap, because although you can tell it's obviously a hubcap, it doesn't sort of try too hard to look like a wheel, and the shadows that are created actually does do a good job of covering up the steel wheel. So I think in the hubcap department that's quite nice. Looks like you have maybe a mild tint going on in the back. The other thing I see, this is parked in front of a church, so perhaps it was some sort of church fan. Now, this is the sleuthing that you do when you're looking for cars on the classifieds. You're trying to piece together the story with very, very little information. Now, of course, you could contact the seller, but it's a fun game to try to like sort of parse out what exactly is going on with this vehicle and why the seller's selling it. And of course, it's a good way to make up justifications to yourself on why it would be a good purchase. So there's only 2 images of this Aerostar. The other is these are all supposed to be sort of a commentary on the classifieds. And one of my favorite classified sort of tropes is when they'll tell you how many miles it has on it, and then they'll take a picture of the odometer as if to prove that they're not lying, which I actually generally appreciate. I think it's funny, although it's also like sort of like redundant in a way. So I always sort of appreciate that little thing when people do that. Now, of all the pictures, this seller has only listed 2 pictures. It's the outside of the car, which so you can see the car exists, and then it's the mileage on the odometer to prove that the mileage is accurate. So just thought that was funny. You see it a lot on cars in general and here on this wonderful Aerostar. The description is very brief. It says vehicle has many new parts. It was recently tuned up and is recently inspected. Kind of just hitting all the bullet points of what you want to hear. Now, it almost sounds a little too bot-ish for me. It almost sounds as if it was sort of just like a bunch of buttons were clicked and nothing was actually typed, because I know a lot of times they'll give you these prompts now, especially on Marketplace. That is it still available is a whole other trope that I won't get into on this episode. But, you know, if it's got many new parts, now it sounds a little vague. That's the problem with it to me. It sounds a little vague, but it was recently tuned up. And of course, tune-up is like sort of the weirdest, most vague phrase too, and is recently inspected. Now that's obviously a big one. Always great to buy a car that's already inspected, because then, you know, you can just drive it straight away. Now it is in a different state than where I live, so I actually don't know the particulars of this, but I'm assuming that you would have to get it re-inspected in the state that you're going to have plates on it for. But again, you know, more black and white contrast, the black plastic door handle, the black wing mirror, the black trim on the sort of little corner window. These little corner windows are such a funny part of Aerostars. That's a whole separate piece of glass right there. And I gotta say, the price is right. Like these are the type of things that you look up late at night and you're like, you start scheming in your head. It was like, how can I like scramble together $1,000 and find you know, steal a day away to run down here and buy this and bring it back. It really is like a disease. But, you know, 95, older in the Aerostar progression, yet it was still classified for classic car insurance. So all the reasons are there to go out and get this car. So if you're witnessing this, you know, if I don't beat you to it first, boy, what a steal this would be, especially if it's accurate as described. And it's a good run. Any good running vehicle for $1,000 is almost impossible to find these days. No less, you know, the greatest vehicle of all time, the Ford Aerostar. So, and it's paid off, no liens, as the description also mentions. Boy, oh boy, this one's really got me smitten. I do like it quite a lot. I love where the gas location is, sort of in the center of the vehicle. That's kind of funny to me. Now this is the regular model, not the extended version, obviously. And not too much more to say about it, other than it's only $1,000, and I want it really, really bad. So thanks for joining us again on Year of the Aerostar, Episode 3, and we'll catch you for the next one. Janky do thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.